What are the steps you need to do to prepare yourself for taxes when you become self-employed? So that's what I'm going to cover. I'm going to lay the groundwork and the foundation, the framework, if you will, to setting yourself up when you become self-employed, when you get that 1099 income, or when you open that business and start working for yourself. What do you need to do to make sure you're positioned the best way possible when it comes time to taxes? My name is Jim Martin. I'm a CPA and I work with self-employed individuals, helping them lay this foundation itself. And I work with my clients, recommend this strategy and this setup framework with all of my clients. But before we dig into that, let's talk about being self-employed a little bit. What does that mean when it comes to taxes? Well, as a self-employed individual, you might be, or let's discuss what is a self-employed individual. Well, anybody that's making money that's not a W-2 essentially. So if you get a 1099 or you just go into business for yourself and you have customers paying you directly, not issuing you 1099, either of those cases, you're now self-employed. So you're working for yourself. You're not getting a W-2. If you get a W-2, you're an employee, different conversation. If you work for somebody, you don't get a W-2, you become self-employed. And so that's what we're talking about. And what's important to know about that is now you file as a business. Even if you don't have a business set up, you're just a freelancer, you're working for yourself, whatever it might be, you're still filing your taxes as a business. You are a self-employed business owner when it comes to taxes. And the default, when you start, you file that on Schedule C, which is titled Profit and Loss from a Business. So you're going to put your income and then all your expenses on that form on Schedule C, come up with your net profit, and that carries up into then your 1040 added with all your other income items, such as if you have W-2 income, investment income, retirement income, all that, and goes through your your 1040, I should say. So with that being said, you're a business. So we need to set yourself up and set the framework up of being a business. Even if you're just employed by yourself, you're paying tax as a business. So you need to set up and operate in a business in order to position yourself the best way with taxes. And the first thing we need to do is get an LLC set up. So an LLC is a limited liability corporation. It is established and you create it through your state. So whichever state you're residing in, that's where you want to create your business entity. Now, what's great about an LLC is it has the option to be taxed as any of the four tax forms available to businesses. So I already mentioned the Schedule C, and that's what you file when you are a self-employed individual. But the LLC, when you create the LLC, you have the option now of using any of the four, as long as you meet the requirements of those entities. So there are some requirements. First off, there's the partnership, and that's going to require more than one owner. So, which actually you don't need the LLC for that one. You're just self-employed. If you go to business with somebody else, you become a partnership. But the LLC can be taxed as a partnership as well. Hope that wasn't too confusing there. But when we come to self-employed individuals, we're really talking about the S corporation, which is the third type of entity there is. It's an S corporation. It's a variation of what we then call the C corporation. Your C corporation is going to be your tax form, your public companies and things like that are going to file. And if you're watching this video, you don't even want to venture down the C Corp route. So we're going to talk about the sole proprietor versus the S corporation. And those are the two options. We're not going to dig into which one's better and which one you should be, but having the option of one or the other is ultimately going to save you money on taxes. Whichever way you want to go, you have the ability to be taxed as either of those options. So that's the important part of creating the LLC. Just creating it, you're still going to file as Schedule C until you make that election to then go and be taxed as an S corporation. So that's the first thing we need to do, and go ahead. I recommend using an attorney or one of the online services to set up your LLC. You can do it yourself straight through the Secretary of State website, but I recommend those services. They're going to give you all the paperwork and all the forms that you need to truly establish your LLC correctly, which would include an operating agreement, getting your EIN for you, all those things, in addition to filing the paperwork required with your actual state, Secretary of State, rather. So, get that set up. That's the first thing we want to do. Second thing we want to do is actually go then and open a business bank account. We're going to take our paperwork that we get from filing our LLC. Most notably, you're going to need that some document, certificate of filing. They may call it something different depending on your state, but it's a form you get from your Secretary of State saying they have recognized and established your LLC as up and running. You're going to get your EIN number, which is your employee identification number. That's the number you get from the IRS. Then, once you have your entity, you go to the IRS, get your EIN, and that's the tax number. It's like your Social Security number, if you will, for your business. So, you need at least those two things. Depending on your bank, you might need more, but at minimum, you're going to need those two items to go and open a business bank account. Now, I actually recommend opening two business bank accounts. You're going to have the one that you're going to be your operating income, or your operating expenses, rather. All your income will go in there, and that's where you're going to pay your expenses out of, just as normal operating account for a business. The second one I do recommend you opening is your tax savings account. So, with being self-employed, it's going to be very different than if you were a W-2 and somebody, and your employer rather, takes that money out, withholds that money, and sends that off to pay your taxes out of each paycheck you get. When you become self-employed, nobody's paying in your taxes for you. You're required to do that. So you want to set up a separate bank account to collect and save money. I recommend putting a portion of every deposit you make, every income, every check you receive, however you get your income, once, twice a month, weekly, however often, whatever makes sense for you and your income type. Put a portion of that, 10-15% is usually a ballpark I start at, and just save that over in your tax savings account. Now you have money set aside, so when you need to make quarterly tax payments or pay your tax bill at the end of the year, if you don't pay it in quarterly, you at least have that money tucked away so you can pay taxes when they come due. So that's really important, but you want a business bank account. The real reason you wanted the business bank account, in addition to saving for taxes, is really when you run all your expenses through that business bank account, it's going to make your life a lot easier in that you have one place where all your expenses for your business are going. You want to fully separate out your personal income and your business income. If you need to pay yourself from your business, you just transfer money from the business into the personal account, and then you buy your personal needs, your food, whatever you're spending personally on. But in that business account, those expenses are all your business expenses and all your business income, and your personal income is not in there. The only thing personal in that business account is you paying yourself by transferring money into your personal bank account. So that's the second thing you should do after you get your LLC. Set up your bank account and really set up those two. Third thing you really need to do is get an accounting software, an online accounting software. I recommend QuickBooks Online because it is the most popular out there, meaning there's you have more options when it comes time to getting help if and when you need help running QuickBooks Online. But any of the accounting software out there all work generally the same. So whichever one you're comfortable with, go with it. I just recommend QuickBooks Online just for the availability of people accountants and bookkeepers, that can help you out with that software if you need help. And so, why do you need it? If you've got it already going through your business account, why would you need that online accounting software? Well, the online accounting software these days, it connects directly to your bank account, and it's going to pull in all those transactions, and then you can just classify it as a type of expense, because no matter how you're filing your taxes as a business, you have to disclose your total income and then your expenses by category. So all those expenses you're going to have to add up and tally up, and you can do that by hand, but it's so much easier if you just do it online with an accounting software. You can set up some automation, some rules. So you do it once, and then every time you go to Starbucks, for instance, it's just going to classify that as a business meal. You do it, set it up once, then every time, done automatically for you. Saves you time, makes it a lot easier. The other great thing about it, and you might need a bookkeeper to help you with this, but if you do pay for some expenses personally, which are going to happen to everybody, either you just don't use your business card, or you it's a personal expense. Cell phone's an example I like to use here. Your portion of it, but you might have a family plan with a spouse, maybe some kids on it, but only your portion of that bill becomes a business expense. And so you can pay for that personally, but we can capture that expense in that accounting software using a journal entry or there's a lot of ways out there. Not going to get into it, not getting that deep into that in this video, but there's ways to do it. Bookkeepers, why QuickBooks Online? I suggest there's millions of people out there that can help you with that, and it just makes it easier. You don't have to then put all those in a shoebox and add them all up at the end of the year when it comes tax time. It just saves you time and makes you more organized. So if you haven't caught on here, the theme really is making yourself organized. The better organized you are, then the better off you're going to be in taxes. You're going to capture all those expenses that are really business expenses. That's one of the biggest reasons people overpay on taxes, is they don't deduct expenses because they're buried in their personal account. They didn't save a receipt. A myriad of reasons. But if you have this system set up, you're more than likely to catch most, if not all, those truly business expenses, and bring all those expenses paid personally into the system, so you can just print off a profit and loss statement, an income statement, and that you can give to your tax preparer. Which leads me into my fourth thing you need to do is actually hire a tax professional, a CPA, maybe an EA. There's a lot of licenses out there that help you, but find somebody, interview more than one, and find somebody you work with, that you would want to work with, I should say, and get them early on in the process. The earlier you sign on a CPA or a tax preparer, the better off you're going to be. Because going back to that first discussion of the self-employed Schedule C filing versus the S corporation filing, that's a discussion you probably want to have with your tax professional of when does that make sense? What income levels does that make sense? And then understand there are additional requirements once you do become that S corporation. You have to pay yourself payroll. Having that bookkeeping and that online accounting software becomes really important, because there's a lot more detail that's needed on an S corporation tax return as opposed to the self-employed tax return. But the payroll is the big one. You want to make sure you're paying yourself payroll. And how do you pay yourself payroll? Do they use a third-party service like an ADP, a Gusto, a Paychex, one of those type things? Do they do that themselves? Can they, be a resource to you to file your payroll tax reports in addition to your business tax returns? All those are things that you want to establish early on. Again, organize yourself, set yourself up for success at the beginning as early as possible, and it's going to help you save money down the road. So Get them in place. You may even want to get them in place before you go through the LLC to make sure how they like things set up, you're in line with it and you're doing it properly for the way they recommend in specific. So this is a general framework, but it's a framework I recommend to all my self-employed clients. Set this up, you do that, then you're organized. Now, in addition to that discussion with my clients on the S Corp versus self employed Schedule C, we can look at all the other tax strategies available because now we have all that information readily available to us to make the decisions of how to do that. Talking about paying kids and retirement plans, things like that. If you don't have the foundation, it's really hard to then know what your income, what your expenses are, and when that kind of discussions make sense to have. So lay the foundation, get the foundation up, get it running as soon as possible, set yourself up for success early as on as possible. You're going to end up paying less money in taxes, spend less time trying to collect information, and less headache and stress when it comes to taxes. So that's my framework. I hope that's helpful. If you've followed along for now this far, feel free to subscribe, throw a like down there. Really do appreciate you watching this far if you've made it. Otherwise, just thanks for watching.